Hello students. So now this is a time to recapitulate whole of the things that we have learned so far in this chapter. So matter around us, that matter in our surroundings, this is the chapter, and this is the time to recapitulate. So what we have learned so far in this chapter, the first thing we have understood, we have got the definition of matter itself. So what is the matter? Just recall in your mind the anything that has mass and occupies volume, that is a matter. Now how they formed their constituent particles. So their constituent particles are the atoms or the molecules and aggregation of atoms and molecules also. Now these in between these constituent particles there must be some interparticle force of attraction. Because of that they are bonded together. So we have discussed in this chapter that yes, the constituent particles are bonded with some interparticle force, and the magnitude of this force decides that which state of matter should be adopted. So nature of constituent particles we have discussed in detail. All these particles yes, definitely all these particles have certain mass and occupy certain volume. However, their distances between are different in different states of matter. You have learned so far that in case of solid state, the distances between the particles are quite less because the interparticle force is greater. However, in case of liquids, the distances are relatively larger because of, again, the same reason is same, that interparticle forces are relatively smaller, and the same logic goes further to the gaseous state. These particles move around their own position. There are three kinds of motions which are possible in these particles. One is the vibratory motion. Just I am recalling you because we have discussed all these things in the respective lectures. So one is the vibratory motion. What vibratory motion is? The motion, to and fro motion about one mean position, that we call vibrations. One is the rotatory motion, and last one is the translatory motion. Rotation you also understand, this is the circular motion around some chosen axis, that we call rotation. Translatory motion you understand that that changes the location with respect to time, that we call translatory. So these three kind of motions are possible in case of the constituent particles in the available volume, and that also gives the idea of degree of freedom. When they are less free to move, we call that degree of freedom is less. So on that grounds we have concluded, we have learned that degree of freedom in case of gases is larger than any other state of matter. The force of attraction between the particles, among the particles, you know that this can be the electrostatic force of attraction, and this can be at the same time the van der Waals force also. The van der Waals forces are relevant when electrostatic forces are not present. Why it is so? Because always and always van der Waals forces are weaker than that of the electrostatic forces. Electrostatic forces are stronger enough, and therefore all the ionic solids are of higher density, are of higher melting points, and are solids in nature. So this is all due to the stronger electrostatic force of attraction. In case of the molecules which have no charge, means in case of molecular solids, the force of attraction is the van der Waals force. Van der Waals forces are weaker, as I told you earlier in the lectures, and therefore in such cases their melting and their boiling becomes easier. So next we have discussed the feature of the matter, that every matter has the melting point, has the boiling point as per its physical state of existence. If a matter exists under standard conditions, in the solid state, melting becomes relevant, and while if a certain other matter exists in the liquid state, then boiling becomes relevant. However, you have learnt in this chapter, in the previous lectures, that whether it is melting or it is boiling, in both of these, in common one thing happens, and that is the release of interparticle force of attraction. So just mind the statement that be cautious about the use of the words. Here we cannot say that the interparticle forces are vanished. No, we cannot say like this. We only can say that interparticle forces of attraction are released. When anything melts, it converts from solid to liquid. That means the degree of freedom has been increased. That means the force of attraction has been decreased. So it is not vanished, only decreased. Similarly, when anything converts from liquid to gas, again the same thing is happening, that the interparticle forces are released further. So melting and boiling both are the phenomenon of decrease of the interparticle force. Then I have discussed in detail in the last lectures that what evaporation is and what happens when evaporation happens. The evaporation is the process of conversion of liquids into the gaseous state, and this happens at the surface of the liquid. I told you in the previous classes, we have discussed that when evaporation happens, the surface becomes cools. It cools down. So how it happens? Cooling and heating are what? Cooling means the energy is absorbed, the heat is taken away. Heating means heat is given to the object. When evaporation happens, it requires a certain amount of energy, so that energy it takes from the liquid itself, and therefore at the surface there is always a cooling effect is associated. So always and always evaporation is associated with the cooling of the surface, and on that grounds, that we have understood the working of the coolers, that is a device to cool the rooms and the spaces in the households, and at any place, even in the offices also we use the coolers. So how they work, this we have discussed in detail. Then in case of coolers, the water we use, the water comes through the net, and therefore the surface area enlarges. The evaporation is directly proportional to the surface area. The rate of evaporation is directly proportional to the surface area. Therefore, greater evaporation happens, and therefore greater cooling effect happens. That cooling effect is propagated through a fan inside the area under consideration. So here we are using the evaporation, the evaporation we are using for our cooling purposes. At the same time, we have also discussed the example of the earthen pot, which is used to cool the potable water. When the refrigerators were not available, and even now the places where refrigeration is not the common practice, we use the earthen pot for the cooling of potable water. The principle is same, the earthen pot has infinite number of capillaries. The water comes out to the outer surface. Now it comes in the contact of air. Under the influence of this air, it evaporates out. It takes the energy from the bulk of the water inside the earthen pot, and therefore this water becomes cool. So this we have got. Then evaporation, we have studied and we have learned that this is not temperature specific phenomenon. This happens at all the temperatures. The only difference what we have studied, the only difference lies in the rate of evaporations. When the temperature is higher, the rate of evaporation is higher. When the temperature is lower, the rate of evaporation is lower. So that we have studied. However, one thing we have to keep in mind, that evaporation is not temperature specific. It happens at all the temperatures. The very common example is that that drying happens in all the weathers, whether it is summers or the winters or the your rains. It happens, but only difference lies in the rate of drying. So this evaporation is. Then we have discussed the evaporation and the boiling. That what boiling is. In the boiling, what happens? Anything when its vapor pressure becomes equal to the external pressure, the boiling happens. The boiling is characterized by a certain equilibrium. What equilibrium is that? The liquid and the vapor equilibrium. When the liquid state comes in the equilibrium of the vapor state, then we call, yes, the boiling is happening. So boiling and the boiling point we have discussed. Then the boiling can be achieved, that at any temperature. However, boiling point of anything is fixed because of its definition. What definition is? That boiling point is the temperature when vapor pressure becomes equal to 1 atmospheric pressure. So that is why boiling point of anything is always a constant value, a constant temperature. For example, boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. But at the same time, we also have learned that boiling can be achieved at any other temperature. So why it is so? Because boiling is the temperature at which vapor pressure becomes equal to the external pressure. And this external pressure may or may not be 1 atm. So when this external pressure is less than 1 atm, then definitely the boiling temperature becomes less than the normal boiling point of anything. And similarly, when we maintain the external pressure greater than 1 atmospheric pressure, then obviously the boiling temperature becomes greater than the normal boiling point. So that means we have studied and we have concluded that boiling can be achieved at any temperature. Yes, but boiling point is constant. So we have cited the two devices, that one is the pressure cooker, one is the freeze dryer. In the pressure cooker, what happens? Inside the pressure cooker, we maintain the higher external pressure, and therefore boiling happens at the higher temperature. And this we do for our convenience. What convenience? To save the time. We all know that inside the pressure cooker, cooking is faster. Why it is faster? Because inside that the boiling happens at the higher temperature. Similarly, we have another device, the freeze dryer. What is the objective of freeze dryer? So that we have discussed already, that for the biological samples which cannot be exposed to the higher temperatures for the sake of drying, for that purpose we use the device, the freeze dryers. Let's say we have to dry the blood sample. The blood you cannot expose to the higher temperatures, so for that reason we have to use freeze dryers for drying of blood, for drying of any biological strain, for drying of enzymes, because enzymes are also from the living organisms, and therefore they cannot be exposed to the higher temperature, and therefore freeze dryers are used. So here again we have used one scientific fact for the service of mankind, for the service of human being. So these are the things where a research works for the sake of, for the convenience of the human being, for the comfortability of the human life. Now we have in this chapter we also have gone through the type of interparticle forces. These interparticle forces, these interparticle forces, some are strong, some are weak. That all depends upon the nature of the constituent particles. When the constituent particles are ionic in nature, obviously the electrostatic force of attraction is there, and that is always higher. when the constituent particles are charged less, in that case, what happens? In that case, the interparticle forces are weaker, and these we call van der Waals forces. And this is the ground which decides that which one will have greater density, which one will have greater hardness, which one will have greater boiling points, etc. and etc. So then we have discussed in this chapter, besides many other things, many other examples we have taken in this chapter to explain you well. We also have discussed here the two uncommon physical states of matter which are of scientific importance rather than the practical daily life importance. The one I have taken the plasma, and one we have taken the Bose-Einstein condensate. So since they are not of daily life importance, so we are not going into detail of these things. The matter, the constituent particles, you know that atoms and molecules are there, and these atoms when aggregate together, the aggregation also happens in two ways. So on that grounds we also get the elements and the compounds. You know, when the same atoms combine together, we get elements. When different atoms combine together, we get compounds. So like you can have the example of, let's say we have the S2, the S4, the S6, all of these are elements, because here only same type of atom is combining together, while when different atoms combine like SO2, like SO3, they become compounds. While here we have taken all these which are polyatomic in nature. Here all we have taken which are polyatomic in nature, because the more than one atoms are present in all the molecules. So, but here you have to understand that polyatomicity is not the condition. If you take here O, then this is also one element, but it is monoatomic. Or you take here, you know that Na. So Na is also a monoatomic element. So atomicity can be 1 for the elements, but it cannot be 1 for the compounds that you are looking here. For any compound, because at least 2 type of atoms are there, so their atomicity cannot be 1. Always and always their atomicity will be greater than 1. So in the first class, in the first lecture of this, we have discussed this nature of the particles. Then we have discussed the features of these particles, their distance between them, their movement, the interparticle force. So all we have discussed in detail already, so need not to say once again here, but still some things we have highlighted once more, so that you can understand that how the things are going and what is their importance. The problems on these grounds also can be asked. You must have to understand the universal nature of van der Waals forces. So I cited one example when I taken the lecture of that particular thing, but here I would like to re-stress on that ground, on that understanding, that is in case of the van der Waals forces. I cited one example that I would like to cite once again, that if you have n number of 1 gram particles of iron, what you have? N number of 1 gram iron particles, कितने? N number of, and you have 1 gram balloons n numbers in the same arrangement, in same arrangement. So here I want to re-stress the fact that in case of balloons, the van der Waals force magnitude is greater than that of the van der Waals force in case of iron particles. So why it has been happened? Because of the dependability of van der Waals forces on the surface area. You just have to understand these things. You just have to recall these things because we have discussed already. And you know that what I want to say, that here in case of balloons, the magnitude of van der Waals force in case of balloons van der Waals force will be greater, van der Waals force in case of balloons will be greater than that of iron particles. So this we conclude on the basis of the fact that van der Waals forces are directly proportional to the surface area. So obviously the surface area of iron particles will be less than the surface area of balloons, and therefore the magnitude of van der Waals forces becomes greater in case of balloons. This happens. So this is the understanding. However, at the same time you have to understand that the gravitational force in both these cases will be equal, because for the gravitational force, while gravitational force in case of balloons will be same as of the gravitational force in case of iron particles, because in case of gravitational force you need not to consider its surface area. The surface area is only considered when we discuss the van der Waals forces. In case of gravitational force, we take the distance from center of mass to center of mass irrespective of the surface area. So all we have discussed in detail, and hopefully you have got it, the chapter in full. And also we have discussed one thing, that is the recapitulation of the, we have discussed recapitulation. We have summarized this chapter properly to make you comfortable in this chapter. So okay, and thanks.